Welcome to Order Test Radio TV. And today's topic, what is Christian love for your country? And we welcome again Brother Alexis Bonello to the show.
Thank you, AJ, for having me on. Always a pleasure and honor to be on Order Militaris Radio TV, breaking new horizons in independent Catholic media in the English-speaking world. And to talk about a topic that, in my youth, occasionally you would hear a homily about. Now you almost never hear this topic raised. So it's important for Catholics to understand what Christian patriotism is so that we can act as Catholics in all parts of our life. So I'm glad to be with you today for this important topic.
What is our country?
As Christians, our country is the kingdom of heaven, okay? That's what we're baptized into. That's the life we receive. That's our fatherland. In Latin, all the saints call heaven our fatherland. We are not born in heaven, but we are reborn to be sons of heaven, or as our St. Francis says, kings of the kingdom of heaven. That's our vocation. That's what God wants us to be. However, we are also born in this world, and we have relationships with the land of our birth. And in modern times, we distinguish between where you're born and your citizenship because they may not be the same thing. Your citizenship is the country to whom you owe political allegiance. And where you're born might be your family, your relatives, or mere circumstance of history. So in this show, when we talk about Christian patriotism, we're talking about the loyalty you own to the nation state of which you are a citizen. We're using it in a very restrictive sense. The real proper concept of Christian patriotism would be loyalty to the Catholic faith, to the King of Heaven, Jesus Christ. But here we're talking about it on the political level.
What is the Christian's relationship to his country?
Well, we have a natural relationship, meaning we're part of a political state. We have some kind of rights in it as a citizen. And as a citizen, the Constitution of our nation specifies what our duties and obligations are and what are our privileges or rights. And so it varies from some of the country. If you're born in a kingdom, you might be a subject. If you're born in a republic, you be called a citizen. And but in generally speaking, we owe loyalty to the state of which we're a member on the natural level, in the sense of we should regard in all our interests that the a preference and a duty to fulfill our duties or execute our affairs in a way that protects the people or the nation of which we are a citizen. So we should never betray our country. We should always look to the interests, the honest interests of our national government. We should obey the laws of our country. We should promote the welfare of our fellow citizens. We should promote the defense of the individual rights of citizens, as well as the duty that we all have to fulfill our obligations toward the government. So it depends. In some constitutions, you might have a mandatory obligation of military service, and as a Catholic, you'd be obliged to fulfill that. And in other nations, you're required to pay certain taxes, and you're required to pay those. And when our governments are honest and just, our level of obedience is required of us is higher and more perfect and more comprehensive than if we're living in a tyranny or dictatorship, where our level of obedience to the government might actually be less than our duty to loyalty to the people. So that varies.
What is patriotism?
Patriotism, okay, from the Latin word patria, which means the fatherland, the land of your birth, the land of your forefathers, the land of your loyalty. Before the rise of the modern state, your fatherland, the place of your birth, and your citizenship were one and the same thing. So Christian patriotism is how the Christian faith motivates us to, in that loyalty, in that in those bonds that tie us to the nation of which we are a citizen, or which may also be the land of our birth. And within the whole system of the Catholic religion, where we, as we said in our previous episode, where faith leads us to recognize order and hierarchy, duty and loyalty and justice, and to act on that. Our duty to our fatherland is something that we should execute in our Christian faith, because it's a gift God gave us to be born in his providence in a certain nation and to be a citizen of a certain state. And so we should imbue our exercise of our liberty in that nation, or our loyalty to that nation, with our Christian faith, fulfilling our duty as much as it's in harmony with the Catholic faith. So in a nation which allows abortion, we shouldn't regard those laws as any way binding upon us as citizens, because our loyalty is first to the kingdom of heaven and not to unjust laws. Or if taxation is excessive, we shouldn't be super scrupulous about paying excessive taxes, because it transgresses natural law, and the purpose of the state is not to make us slaves. But we should respect our government officials. We shouldn't insult them, attack them, or do them harm when they're executing their duties that are just or honest or upright, and are not involved in a war against their own people and things of that kind. So Christian patriotism causes us to love our nation, be loyal to it, presume that in conflicts with other nations, our nation is right. That's not always true, but it's just a presumption. To follow its laws, to participate in the political life in as much as we have a right to, and to uphold Christian values in our society. That's what makes it Christian. If we're just the kind of Christian patriot who it's our country, hell or high water, right or wrong, then we've made our nation an idol, and that's not Christian patriotism. Christian patriotism should want to see the whole nation become a Catholic nation, faithful to Christ, that Christ be publicly adored, worshipped, and obeyed, and that our fulfillment of our loyalty in the nation, whether we hold office or not, should be to promote that perfection and development. And if we love our nation that way, then we're true Christian patriots. Whereas if our patriotism is divorced from our faith, and we don't have faith when we exercise our patriotism, or if patriotism is divorced from our faith, such that we practice the Catholic religion but we're not in any way patriotic, there's something wrong with we are failing in our faith. We're failing in the fact that our faith should inspire every aspect of our life and motivate us in all that we do, and encourage us to do what's right, because patriotism is a duty of justice towards your nation, but within the limits of the Christian system of morals, the Christian faith, and the teachings of Christ.
Is patriotism a work of justice or fidelity, or is it merely a political preference?
Yeah, so I would say that patriotism is a work of justice, okay? Because you wouldn't enjoy many of the things you do enjoy, and you would not have many of the things you do have, and you would have not received the advantages or the education or the opportunities that you have in another nation. It's because of your nation's laws. It's the fact that you were born there enable you to enjoy all these things. And God in his providence chose you to be born in that nation. So you are in a certain way accepting the order of divine providence by being patriotic to your nation, because God has willed you to be a member of that nation, and to promote the that nation's loyalty to himself and to promote the Christian faith in that nation. You could say, in a way, it's fidelity, because all those bonds of all those things that bind us to our nation, from the point of view as of family or opportunities, history, or culture, are something to which we owe us fidelity as a human being and gratitude. And it's certainly not a preference, a political preference. And this is something that the Marxists have tried to get people to think, that patriotism is a political preference and you don't have to be patriotic. Nothing could be further from the truth. Patriotism is a work of justice and you owe it to your nation to be patriotic, but within limits. Not in the sense that you close your eyes to corruption or you take your nation's side when it's wrong, or that you don't want to clean out institutions that are corrupt, or that you vote for bad parties because they're more patriotic than others. But so it's not a preference, it is an obligation, but one that is fulfilled, as I said before, as where your loyalty to the faith is the first loyalty of your life, and that that loyalty leads you to try to promote the Catholic faith and its values in your own country.
Now we start getting to the third rail questions here. When we think of love of our country, why do so many think it is okay to support a country financially that does not represent what we believe?
Yeah, so in the United States, since our mass media and a lot of our politics for more than 50 years has been controlled by Jews, most people have been psychologically, intellectually, ideologically conditioned through MK Ultra techniques, constant blather, 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 that somehow the essence of what it means to be a true American is that you're going to defend the state of Israel. Now, maybe I'm exaggerating, but you get so many people who knee jerk and they think that the essence of being a true Christian in America means that you're supporting Israel.
Mm-hmm.
And they shout it night and day, all over the place. It's completely ridiculous. I remember when I was growing up in the 70s, you turned the news on at night and it was always about Israel. I mean, it was like, does Israel border on the north or the south? I mean, where is this Israel that we have to hear the news about every day? But that's because the media is controlled by Jews and they naturally feel close to Israel, which is a Jewish theocratic state. Okay, so there's nothing wrong with that, but we're not Jews and we don't have to watch your news, and that's not our patriotism. That might be your patriotism, and if it is, move to Israel and become a citizen of Israel. But stop trying to, brainwash us 24/7 about Israeli politics. They dumped that in shortly after the year 2000. Once the Democratic Party started moving pro-Islamic, they weren't so pro-Israel anymore, and so you don't see much of that anymore in the news. But it's a strong ideologic contact. Now, that is just totally wrong. It's completely messed up. It's a perversion. It's misrepresentation, because the knee-jerk reaction of a citizen of the United States should be loyal to the United States, mm-hmm. interested in U.S. issues or national defense. But the left has characterized any attempt to be patriotic as somehow evil, unjust, unchristian, cruel, greedy, or capitalistic, from issues as like immigration to issues regarding wanting a strong military, or even the issues of having English as a national language, a whole bunch of issues. So yeah, it's just totally wrong. And if your first if you have a knee-jerk reaction to want to run to the defense of a nation that's not your country, and you have no ties, it's not like, like myself, I'm an Italian American, so I feel for both the U.S. and Italy, because that's where my ancestors come from, Italy, and I'm a dual citizen. But you have a knee-jerk reaction for some other nation that you have no cultural or blood ties to, then you should ask yourself if perhaps you've been victimized by MK Ultra techniques and brainwashed, because why would a Christian immediately want to run into the help of a non-Christian nation if he's not born there and it's not his blood. Okay. Now, as Christians, we should love the Holy Land, and we should want the defense of the places in the Holy Land. That's not the state of Israel. The state of Israel is founded by a group of Jews who started a revolution in 47 and took over the area and subjected the entire population to Jewish racist politics. It has nothing to do with the Holy Land or our Christian faith. As a matter of fact, Pius XII wouldn't even recognize the existence of Israel because it was so unjust and immoral and racist in its view of politics and what the nation should be. And it still is.
Yeah. What is it that is behind this Zionism movement that forces you to support Israel, or you are truly not an American or truly Christian?
I think it's, first of all, because you have to understand the Masonic Lodge was founded by a group of Protestants and Jews in London in 1717. So whenever the Masonic Lodge controls a nation like it does in the United States is Masonically controlled through and through. Its whole system of thought, its politics, both its major parties are just thoroughly Masonic, although in a very, very clandestine way. You wouldn't notice unless someone points it out to, because you're not going to be told anything about the Masonic Lodge in public schools so that you could recognize it. They get their tax in the sense of the Masonic Lodge must serve the Masonic order and the Jewish order, internationalists. And that's why the Jews have so much power and they're allowed to control our mass media in the United States, and why anyone opposed to them is crushed, blacklisted, deplatformed, and anything, because they're part of the Masonic order. It's not like, you know, they have their own system of control in the US, it's Masonic. So the US serves Israeli interests and it serves Masonic interests around the world. I don't think the US has ever fought a war to defend a Christian nation as a Christian nation. I'm trying to think. I don't think you can find it in the history of the United States ever. It's either for a cause for itself, like for commerce, or it's fought to defend its Masonic allies like Great Britain or France, or it's for against its Masonic enemies like in the Second World War, or it's or for wars with Masonically controlled states like Russia and China and Vietnam, or in Korea, just to put up a show that they were opposing communism. And but it's never it's never liberated a Christian nation from jihadis. They said they were going to do that in Iraq, and what was it? They liberated the Muslims from jihadis and they wiped out the Christians. They effectively allowed the Christians to be genocided. So that the U.S. in its foreign policy is constantly defending Israel and supporting Israel is a consequence of the Masonic system. It's just an evidence that the U.S. is a Masonic state, and so therefore it will serve promoting Protestantism and promoting Judaism. For example, in the Second World War, the U.S. military was one of the major forces that helped liberate Italy from the fascist regime of Mussolini and from the Nazis who had taken over the country after Mussolini's government fell. No sooner they were in control in the post-war period, they brought in the Jehovah's Witnesses and the Mormons to break down the Catholic faith. Did they defend the Catholic Church? Not for the life of you. They actually have a long-term program to destroy the Catholic Church, which is why we have Bergoglio every day out of the Vatican saying things that Obama would say. It's like he's a deep state servant of the deep state. And that's not a coincidence. That is intended and planned, and that was programmed, that was organized. So the fact that the U.S. supports Israel shouldn't surprise you once you understand what kind of government we really have and what's really going on in the United States.
When we begin to think of Christian love of your country, what do we mean?
If we love our country as Christians, we should love our country in Christ in the sense of we should want that everyone come to know and love Jesus Christ, become a Catholic, embrace the Catholic faith. Not because they're forced to it, but they finally are delivered from all the lies that kept them from seeing the truth. We want the Masonic Lodge eliminated from society. We want terrorists removed. We want laws observed. We want the rights of everyone, the poor and the wealthy, to be protected. We want institutions to follow honest Christian principles and not be part of some secret society that's out to exploit the people for their ends. So if we truly love our nation, we'll want to deliver it from all secret societies, all Marxist political parties, all kind of groups that are tied to geopolitical forces around the world which are not Christian. And we want the liberty of the church, the freedom of our faith, and we want a system of education that helps people understand the truth of history, and so that they see the Catholic religion is the true Christian faith, and it is the only religion that leads to true liberty and the true stability of a nation. So if we have a Christian love for our nation, that's what we'll want to do. We want to transform our nation into a Christian nation, and if it is already Christian, we want it to be faithful to that and be governed by people who are faithful to that, because that's the only hope for the nation. A politician who says, religion doesn't influence my decisions, you should consider him a public enemy, because that means he's completely immoral and he's going to do anything he likes to you. Whereas a politician says, I'm going to exercise my authority according to my Christian faith, is someone who recognizes there are unwritten laws in heaven he must keep, and not only the written ones on earth.
Would a true Christian leader hurt his country by doing things that hurt the economy?
He certainly would not. Now, we did a whole program on Christian leadership, and then we did one on Christian activism, so I encourage everyone to listen to those programs. But even if the law allows you to do something, or even if public opinion allows you to do something, as a Christian leader, that doesn't matter. The matter is, does the teaching of Jesus Christ allow you to do it? Now, one of the most fundamental aspects of Christianity is justice, because we recognize by faith that there is an order in the world, and we are filled with a spirit of justice. That means to do no harm to others, not violate their rights. A leader of a nation, obviously, since a nation exists to promote what is honest and obstruct and punish what is wicked and evil, obviously has no authority to damage its own economy. I mean, that's just like common sense. It's like saying, does your Christian faith give you authority or inspire you to commit suicide or mutilate yourself? Certainly does not. So just as the Christian faith requires us to use our entire human body according to moral law, ethical principles, so a head of state must use his authority entirely in accord with the teaching of Christ. Otherwise, he's not a Christian leader, even though he might be a leader. So yeah, you cannot harm your economy. I mean, that's just, that would be the worst kind of injustice and the worst abuse of office, apart from openly persecuting Christians or attacking human rights directly. So economic damage that a leader can cause is only a minor kind of damage. There are far greater kinds of damage, like if he personally promotes immorality by saying he's in favor of the gay political agenda, or he promotes contraception, or he's in favor of things like suicide or abortion. He damages the nation more by personally saying he's in favor of those things than actually if he would shut down the economy, because economic things are a lower order of being than morality. But in both, he would not be a faithful Christian leader if he did those things.
Would a true Christian leader allow citizens to live in fear and occupation by Marxist terrorists? Or would he raise all the forces he can and properly free them and round up these terrorists?
He would certainly do the latter, because the religion of Christ is a religion of hope, optimism, encouragement, salvation, liberation, and it opposes fundamentally, as we've said before in our program on Marxism, the whole concept of the Marxist system of misinterpretation, misdirection, misinformation, mind control, narrative control, enslavement, and expropriation of all parts of society to serve the party in the interests of a small elite who want to take power by claiming they're in favor of the people. To allow that to go on is the sign of a leader who's a Marxist, though he might pretend to be quite otherwise. You can be a Marxist and a wealthy person that runs companies. Those aren't contradictory, because Marxism wants to break down the order in the world that God has established. And if you're in favor of gay marriage, if you're not out to completely shut down abortion, if you are in favor of terrifying the people 24/7 about a pandemic that doesn't exist as a pandemic, and a virus that doesn't hurt anyone. If your own laboratories made the virus and you don't admit it and take responsibility, then you're obviously not a Christian, you're a Marxist. You're just playing the people to get them to go along with the revolution and not resist it, because what you should be doing is immediately arresting all the liars, putting them in prison, taking away the licenses of these TV stations, and threatening governors and any political leader who would take away people's civil or religious liberty because of a pandemic with imprisonment, or you would arrest them on the spot for doing it, saying they're usurping authorities, they violated the Constitution, and they're in rebellion against the sovereign people of the country. You certainly let them terrorize people. I mean, that's like kind of saying, I'm a good father, but I'm going to let a man enter my house and sexually abuse my children. And then people saying, oh, but he's a Christian father. No, he's certainly not. Okay, certainly not. So if you can't tolerate priests abusing children, you certainly shouldn't tolerate a president abusing his nation by neglect, because it's the same moral case and the general principles.
What else would you like to add?
People have become so brainwashed that if you say certain leaders of the world are not Christians, Christian leaders, because they're going along with the COVID stunt, they'll attack you like vicious dogs. These people need to stop and think, what does it mean to be a Christian? Have you lost all common sense? Or have you been totally brainwashed? You're part of the problem, because once the mass of the Christian people realize their leader is not a Christian, and that the parties in his country are not Christians, they're going to start forming a Christian party, and then you'll have true liberty. And if you're constantly attacking people and preventing them from seeing the truth, then you are an agent of the Masonic order. You are a servant of Satan, devil, and the Lucifer. You are a son of the father of lies. And you have to wake up and realize it. And if you are a Catholic that reads news sources, blogs, follow popular talkers, and they're acting like that, you have to wake up and realize that you're listening to someone who is in the kingdom of the Antichrist, not someone who's serving Jesus Christ, even though it may have crucifixes plastered all over the wall of his video studio, okay? So wake up and smell the chorusy and start living your Christian faith and using your own little noodle in your head. Don't go along with political correctness and narrative control. It says, is this in conformity with the gospel, or is it really just Marxism or Masonic propaganda?
Yeah. Totally agree. And did this show because, like, you see it all the time on Twitter. Oh, you gotta support Israel. You gotta wear the mask. You gotta hold out your arm. Like, no.
And I'll point out that many Christians are highly confused. They think that Christian patriotism in the US, for example, or in their own country, means upholding the Constitution of your country. Well, except for some rare, very small exceptions, the modern constitutions of nations are Masonic, they're secularist, they're atheist, or they're Marxist. You have no obligation of a Christian to want to observe that document, except only those parts that might be in conformity with the Catholic faith. But we have to understand that the US Constitution is a crime against Christian patriotism. Why? Who fought the American Revolution? It was Christians who fought the American Revolution. Therefore, they should have gotten a constitution that was Christian, but they didn't. After they were defrauded in the Constitution that we have. The Constitution of the United States is a fraud. It has robbed the people who are Christian, who shed their blood for our liberty, and given them a constitution that is anti-Christian and non-Christian. And that is a theft of right. Okay, so don't start saying the founding fathers were great people and the constitutions we have to uphold. You've been brainwashed by the Masonic narrative. That's just not true. We have never in the United States had a constitution that was worthy of the men who fought the revolution. We have never had it, okay? Because they were robbed right beginning by Masonic plot, organized by people like Adams and Jefferson. And that's the truth of the thing. And that's what Christians in America have to realize. Stop smelling, start smelling the coffee and stop eating up all the propaganda and lies. Open your Bible and then open the Constitution and try to find anything in the Constitution that's from the Bible. Okay. That Constitution should quote scripture from beginning to end if it was a Christian document. And many constitutions throughout history have quoted scripture. Why doesn't ours quote scripture? Because it's written by people who are anti-Christian. Okay. And how did anti-Christians get in power if Christians are the ones who fought the revolution? It's injustice. Okay. So Americans won the revolution, but then the Masonic Lodge stole their liberty. And it's been stolen ever since. And that's why America does not serve Christ internationally. It serves the Masonic order. We were hoodwinked. And we need to go back to before the U.S. Constitution and rewrite it. That's why I'm totally in favor of rewriting the U.S. Constitution. But it has to be a Christian party in control of the country when we do it, because otherwise it'll just get much worse. And that's why Christians are constantly disappointed in the U.S. government, because the U.S. government's not Christian. It's atheistic, it's Masonic, and it openly will embrace Islam or Marxism, because those are also enemies of Jesus Christ and the Christian people of the United States.
Tomorrow, we'll finally learn about the history of Poland.
Okay, so this will be an interesting program, AJ, and I'll ask the questions. So you can tell us something about the Piast family, whom you're related to. And this will be a great example to everyone of what a Catholic nation with true Christian leaders was like. And they don't teach you this in public schools because the Masons don't want you to know that America is defrauding the Christian people, and we don't have Christian leaders in America. We never had, because we never had a Christian party that really wants to advance the cause of Christ. We only have had Masonic parties.
Yeah. So tune in tomorrow for that, and please support the work we do at Order Terrace Radio TV by going to ordo-militaris.net, clicking in the show topics except the one on Lebanon. That one's the relief fund for Lebanon. All the others will have the make a free will monthly subscription. You'll see the blue-green button at the bottom. Click that and follow the steps. And also, please be generous with the Beirut Humanitarian Relief Fund, which can be found at Ordo.
Militaris.us, ORDO-MILITARIS.us. You'll see the link right at the top of the page.
And this is Ordo Militaris Radio TV signing off. Day is full.
Day is full.